All right, I think we can start, and if Charmaine shares the initial screen presentation,
Yep.
we can just introduce ourselves and tell you guys.
Hold on. Oh, sorry, that's all my work.
Some lovely immunology there, Charmaine.
Alright. Alright, so my name is Charmaine Lim. Welcome to our second event at In2MedSchool. I am the events coordinator along with Anna. Anna, do you want to actually carry on, or should I do it?
So what does In2MedSchool do? We are basically more than 1,500 student mentors coming from all over the UK and all over UK medical schools. What we do is offering free mentoring sessions to disadvantaged year 12 and year 13 students that would like to study medicine. We do this by offering one-to-one mentoring sessions, online webinars just like this one, and many educational resources to make the best out of your medical school application process. We write blog posts and insights into research articles, etc., which we think will all be helpful with your personal statement, interviews, etc. We decided to do our second webinar about being Black into medical school. First of all, because it's Black History Month, and we don't think this topic should only be discussed during this time, but we wanted to take the time to appreciate this celebration. Therefore, we invited three amazing speakers who have all been champions of anti-racism and race equality in their medical school: Ellen, Olamide, and Oke. Ellen and Olamide go to Cardiff Medical School, and Oke goes to Anglia Ruskin Medical School alongside me. Today, they will give a little presentation about their journey into medical school and then answer any Q&A questions that you guys have. So please feel free to make the most of the Q&A tab right here on Zoom. If nobody else has any other questions, I will then just pass the floor on to Ellen, which will go first and will tell us all about herself. Please, Ellen, go ahead.
Stop sharing.
Okay, should we go to full screen soon? I'm not sure if we can see full screen yet.
No, not yet. Oh, there you go.
Yes, we can.
Well, right, am I ready to go?
Yes.
Yep.
Please.
No problem. Hi everyone, my name's Ellen. Like Anna said, I go to Cardiff University. Today I'm just going to share a bit about my experiences in medical school, a bit of my journey, and some of the work that I do. So just to start off, a little fact file about me. So I'm a year 3 medical student. So if you ever looked at Cardiff before, we have a course where we have preclinical, where it's year 1, year 2, and then clinical, which is from year 3 onwards. So I've just started doing placements now. And some of the roles that I hold is president of the African Caribbean Medical Association at Cardiff. I lead Christian Medical Fellowship and involved with some other societies. I'm a digital ambassador. I'd say my talent is playing the violin, which is, I love playing the violin, and my career goal is surgery. So that's just a little insight into who I am. So I thought the easiest way to explain about my experience of being Black in medical school is just to give just a bit of a timeline of my journey. So I'm just going to give a bit of an introduction to a background about me. So my hometown is Stoke-on-Trent, which is about 4 hours away from Cardiff. It's between like Manchester and Birmingham. It's not a diverse area at all. I've always been used to being the only Black girl from a very young age, at primary school, high school, sixth form. I didn't really have any Black friends in terms of how I got into medicine. So I did the usual like triple sciences, English, maths at GCSE, and then I took like French, Latin, Greek and music. A levels, my mum forced me to do 4, so I ended up doing maths, biology, chemistry, music. a lot of a common question I get is like, why did you decide to do medicine? In actual fact, it took me a while to decide because I was always torn between music and medicine. And it wasn't until in the later stages I realised that I wanted to apply to do medicine. But my mum was one step ahead of me, so she made sure I got work experience regardless. So I did like volunteering in a hospice for like a year, did a week in hospital. But now, obviously, during COVID time, it's a lot more difficult to get work experience, but there's still loads of stuff that you can do. I was in a different situation. So when I went to do my UCAT, my nan passed away like 3 days before my UCAT. So I was really freaking out. I'd been preparing for my UCAT for ages. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make it into medical school. But actually, I did better than I thought. I think just the adrenaline of it. I still did my UCAT anyway. But I ended up not revising for my BMAT just because I was grieving. The funeral was so close to do my BMAT. But I still got to where I wanted to do. Cardiff was always my first choice. So that's a bit about my story, and here I am now. So year one for me, I think there's different aspects to my first experiences. So I mentioned that where I live, it wasn't very diverse. For me, Cardiff was almost an upgrade because it was the first time I've ever had black friends. It was the first time I saw like people who weren't white around me. But I think at the time, looking back, I didn't realise how different the culture shock would be for my other friends. A lot of my friends coming from London, they found it really hard adjusting to Cardiff, whereas I settled in quite easily. But one thing I did notice was the lack of representation. In a year about 300 people, there's only about 15 black students. And at the time, I didn't even think about diversity at medical school. It just wasn't on my mind at all. And one thing that I honestly went through at medical school was also an identity crisis. A question that I'll probably talk about later on is, where are you from? Which has lots of different connotations to it. But actually, when I first joined Cardiff, particularly like when I joined ACS, which was the year Olamide was president, was the best year, which is the African Caribbean Society, you know, a lot of people would ask me, where are you from? So I'd be like, oh, I'm from Stoke-on-Trent, but, you know, I've got like grandparents who are Jamaican. And they would look at me strange. They'd be like, so you're Jamaican? I was like, wait, I can claim my heritage? Like, what is that? And actually, at the start of medical school, that was quite a big adjustment. It was learning, like claiming my heritage, and actually ACS and just having black friends was a way that I just learned a lot more about culture, which was really important to me. I've spoken briefly about the course where we have like preclinical and clinical medicine. In year one, the first term is basically learning core sciences, and then after second term is case-based learning. We were quite lucky in the fact that in the first term, there's lots of different tutorial groups, and I was able to, it just so happened that a lot of my black friends, we were all in the same tutorial groups. So I didn't feel like isolated in a way, because I was so used to having people around me. But then as the course went on, I realized, wait, why am I the black girl in this room? You know, when we were changing the groups, and it started very early on, I just started to see some disparities that I wasn't sure of, even in my extracurricular. So I meant to play the violin, so in orchestra, I was the only black girl. In all my societies, mostly apart from ACS and ACMA, I was the only black girl, and that was a sense of isolation that came with that, which I thought was quite strange. But year one, I managed to settle fairly quickly. So moving on to year two, that's when everything really changed. And I think my awareness of race, diversity and culture definitely increased. So in year two, you have to do EDI workshops, which is equality, diversion, diversity and inclusion. And in part of these workshops, you're talking through different scenarios, such as, for example, a patient doesn't want to be treated by you because you're black. What do you do? So my initial reaction is, well, okay, that's fine. I'll find someone who wants to be, you can treat them. It's not my problem. But when the tutor was like, oh no, you need to talk it through with them, you need to come to an end goal together. I started realizing, just even in the different answers throughout the group, there was a lot of unconscious biases in the groups, and there's a lot of conversations that needed to dig deeper, and there wasn't really enough opportunities in medical school for people to get a full experience. In placement, I mentioned that question, where are you from? But when you get it from a negative tone, so often patients will pull you aside and ask you, where are you from? So I'm very extra, so I'm like, oh, I'm from Stoke. And they're like, so where are you really from? It's like, I'm from the United Kingdom. What are you trying to get at? And actually what they're trying to ask is like, why are you black? Why are you not white? And then that was something that I even experience still now. And it's, again, it kind of fed into my identity crisis, but then it's like, there's a negative aspect to that. Year 2 was strange because I was year 2 earlier this year in 2020, and obviously COVID-19 happened. I went back home, and I was part of different societies, but I always knew that I wanted to take up more of a leadership role in ACMA, which is the African Cardiff Medical Association. But then, unfortunately, there was the death of George Floyd, and there was a massive Black Lives Matter movement, and lots of letters and petitions. Social media was absolutely uproar. And I didn't know what to do. I felt a lot of pressure going into a role, leading a Black society during such a prevalent time. But we decided to do an early handover in society for me to I just felt called to do something, and I just wasn't sure what it was. Let me just quickly give an introduction to what ACMA is about. So we have 3 aims, which is inspire, aspire, and achieve. So inspiring the next generation of like African Caribbean students, because there is a lack of representation, and there's a report which shows there's only 3.3% of all medical students are Black in the UK. Aspiring is helping our medical students achieve their career aspirations and achieving structural equity. And I've got this this diagram here, and actually I borrowed it from one of Olamide's talks a while ago, actually, because I thought it was a really good representation of showing what equity actually means. And I really encourage you to read up on the differences between inequality, equality, and equity. And I was thinking, so how can we achieve structural equity at medical school? Because what the Black Lives Matter movement showed was so much systemic racism and changes that needed to be made. And I had no idea where to start, but I took a step back and I saw what was being done, but I took quite a different approach. So I basically reached out to medical school and I said, look, this is a really difficult time. You're going to get a lot of backlash here. There's a lot that you need to be doing, but let's do it together. Let's work together. So I reached out to them, gave them support, and I basically produced a survey to BMAT students to understand what they thought that the medical school did to address like race and diversity. And I put it into a document which kind of had looked at different aspects to help advise medical school. I put the term BME in green because there's a lot of conversations about what terminology we should be using. And often, you know, BME is really easy just to lump people into one category. Even, you know, at medical school back pre-COVID times, in lectures, everyone just refer to the Black girls and, oh, the Black girl row would all sit together, even though there was rows and rows of white people, but that's another talk in itself. And at the time I used BME just because it was easier, it was because what everyone was used to, but looking back as a reflection, I wouldn't have chosen to use those terms because our all experiences are very different. But I try to reflect that in the report. And what did that lead to? So loads of conversations with the medical school, and then this was all this summer, the really recent, and now going into the year 3, it led to the development of a student staff race equality task force, which is all about what we can be doing to improving race equality at the medical school, because I just felt called that I think looking back, I realized how naive I was at the beginning of medical school. And then as I became older, I became more culturally aware. There's so much that needs to be done to improve the experiences for all. So we looked at doing like Black History Month events, which went really well. We did a webinar just celebrating successful Black people, because often you don't see Black role models, and there are so many out there. Olamide is one of mine, to be honest. And it was just a point of celebrating that. Earlier back in summer, we did a webinar about COVID-19 in BME communities, because not only is there, you know, structural like health inequalities in medical school, but in the wider world, if you may have seen the news, more than probably, I think it was BME people were 4 times more likely to die from COVID. So they were showing that was also structural issues out in the NHS as well. And now the work is now looking to decolonize the curriculum. And you probably might have heard this terminology a lot, but it's looking at how can we break down the curriculum to ensure that it's inclusive and it's considerate of all different ethnic groups and different kind of backgrounds as well. So we started to do work in that, improving policies and improving experiences, because unfortunately people do have awful racist experiences, discrimination, microaggression, and we need to be doing more to prevent that. People don't go through that at medical school. But aside from that, I often say to people, yes, I do race, I am Black, but actually I'm a lot more than that. And actually people just recognize you for what you do for your work. As a Black medical student, I actually forget you're a medical student too. And to be honest, I forget it myself. I forget I do medicine, so I probably should do more of that. But this year has been a time for me to explore projects. I've had more opportunities presented to me since the work of ACMA, which I've kind of just used to my advantage. If people just want to take advantage of me for being Black, I'll just take advantage of them and just use the opportunities too. So it works both ways. And it's been a really exciting time, but it's also about managing your well-being through this, because it was really overwhelming, particularly Black Lives Matter. I had to do loads of social media detox. It's overwhelming what you see, and also what you see during in medical school, and just reflecting on your day-to-day lives, the different things that may not sit right with you. And it's important that you sit through it, not even sit through it, talk through it with people, share your experiences, and sometimes that's really hard to do. So that's just a bit about my kind of journey, about what I do, and just a few final things. I can't remember what I put on my slides now. I think it should be digital. Yeah, so aside from being a medical student, I am a digital ambassador for the university. So I've loved doing this role because I write blogs. I speak to aspiring medics every day on Unibuddy. So if you want to talk to me afterwards, you can talk to me on Unibuddy, which is a secure platform to chat with current kind of university students. And it's been a really great opportunity for students to ask me about diversity, because looking back, I didn't even think about diversity when going to medical school, because it just didn't come to mind. I just wanted to get into medical school. But now, when people see my profile picture, they'll ask me, so what's it like, you know, being Black? Like, have you experienced racism? And it's being able to support people and encourage them that it may occur, but it's, again, everyone's experiences are different, and trying to support them into medical school, and also to give an insight to Cardiff. So definitely check out my blogs if you'd like to. So last slide. Yeah. So I hope I've given you just a bit of insight into about me, about the work that's being done at Cardiff, just some take-home messages. Every experience is really unique between different Black medical students, and also if we think about BME, between Black groups, Asian groups, all the different groups. I would like to use the term underrepresented communities, because I think there's so many different terminology, but I think that's a nice way to describe different groups who aren't represented well. Don't let statistics stop you from striving to your goals. I didn't know when I was applying to medical school that there was so little Black students, and when I look at all the Black medical students in years above me. There's not many at all, but it doesn't mean you should stop trying to apply. It shouldn't mean that you should just stop because there isn't enough, because you have to, you know, change the future and change what it looks like to be a doctor, which should be anyone, and it doesn't matter, basically. And there'll always be more to do to address systemic inequalities, not only in medicine, but, you know, in the wider world. We can all make a difference to it by working together, and I think having a collaborative approach has helped a lot. But I think, to kind of contradict myself, just because you're Black, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do the work. And I think often people put the onus on you and expect you to know everything about racism. all through Black Lives Matter, I had loads of people messaging me who didn't really know me, just like asking me to explain different things. And it's also about, you know, people can educate themselves as well. It's not just on Black medical students. So yeah, I hope that was okay. I hope that was the point of the talk. I just kind of put loads of stuff into slides, but thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. It was really, really lovely. Yes, you perfectly centered the point of the talk, so don't worry. There's many questions for all speakers, but we will go through them in the Q&A session at the end. I think Olamide now can share your experience, if you're able to share your screen and all of that.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, so hi everyone. It's really, really great to be here today. It's really great to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to being able to answer your questions. Thank you to Charmaine and Anna for having me, and it's also amazing to be on this lineup of speakers. These are two great individuals, so I'm sure there'll be so many gems that you can take from this talk. So just a bit about myself. Who am I? My name's Olamide. I'm a final year medical student. I'm Nigerian. I've just kind of listed the key things that I'd say about my life and my journey so far. One of my kind of proudest achievements is that I lead In2MedSchool. I'm the founder. And In2MedSchool is a charity which I'll talk about a bit later. Hopefully some of you know about it. If you don't, that's fine. But I've also been a scholar at the Healthcare Leadership Academy, so I did that last year. I sit on the General Medical Council, so GMT Equality and Diversity Advisory Board, particularly looking at differential attainment for Black, well, not just Black students, but ethnic minority students and doctors as well. And then I was president of a few societies. I think it was about 2 years ago now, a year or two ago. And this year I was also awarded the Rising Star in Healthcare Award, which was mind-blowing to me. But that's always something great. So I'm just going to talk a bit about my journey to medicine. So I have kind of different sections looking at my life, kind of thing. I'd say I'm very segmented. So you have Olamide, that's just Olamide, the friend, the family member. You have Olamide, the med student. You have Olamide, the leader. Different things. So hopefully I'll be able to touch on all of that. But as you can see, cute picture in the corner. So my medicine journey. So I grew up in a part of England that is considered to be deprived. I say considered because I don't know if I'd classify it as a really deprived area, but I did know that there was, it was kind of a low socioeconomic area. So in my area, not many people go to university, not many people study medicine at all. Like I literally didn't meet anyone in the area that I lived in that wanted to study medicine. But I always knew from a young age that medicine was what I wanted to do. I was good at the sciences. And yeah, I watched a movie called Gifted Hands about Ben Carson. He's a neurosurgeon that separated conjoined twins. He's a Black neurosurgeon in America. I don't agree with his political standing. I do have to say that. But it was just a really inspirational movie, and it really just broadened kind of my mindset. And I actually thought, yes, I can do medicine, and I'm going to try my best. So when I got to sixth form, I went to a sixth form that was different from my secondary school, and that was just a huge kind of shock to the system, because my secondary school, I don't know if I'd say it was that diverse, but I had my friends and we were a diverse group of friends, and that was enough for me. I get to a sixth form now, it's like the complete opposite. I still met amazing friends, but because we were from a completely different area, they looked at us like, oh, you're from that area, like it's a rough area, people don't do very well. When it came to applying for medicine, my chemistry teacher didn't want to give me the predicted grade that I needed. That was a very, very big challenge. I was ready to give up, to be honest, but luckily my dad's a teacher, so he understands how the education system works, and he understands that you can challenge certain things. And I think people sometimes take that teacher's word for it, like it's the absolute kind of truth, but not really. You can actually advocate for yourself. And luckily, the head of sixth form changed my grades on UCAS. And at the end of the day, I ended up getting an A in chemistry, which my chemistry teacher didn't want to predict me. So imagine if she hadn't, if I wasn't able to change my grades, the likeliness of me actually getting an interview, let alone getting into medical school, would have been a lot slimmer. So always grateful to my sixth form teacher. But I like to include this medicine journey because I always say, like, I'm a very average student, so you don't have to be like top of your class all the time. I was a high performer in secondary school, but when it came to the admissions tests, I scored literally like 3 marks above average for that year for my UCAT score. My personal statement, I was really lucky. I met a mentor who just supported me so much. She's still my mentor now. She's a GP. She's from my area. She went to the same school that I did. So it was just a huge, huge blessing to me. And she helped coach me for my medical school interviews as well. So I got 3 out of 4 interview invitations and 2 out of 4 medical school offers. So I always include my academic performance, because what I realized when I started medical school, and I'll touch on it in the next slide, but I remember when I started, because I got a B in biology in my A levels, and I remember I was just thinking, like, I got into med school by the skin of my teeth, until one day I was walking with like just a few of like my classmates and stuff, and someone started talking about that A level grades, and out of a group of 7 of us, I'd say like 5 of us got AAB that year. So that's how you'll be thinking, like, it's just you, but it really isn't. And looking back on it now, like, it literally has no bearing on how you will perform in medical school. But anyway, I'm moving on. So Olamide's a medical student now. I'm in my final year now. It's crazy. Life is flying by. But I started in Cardiff in 2016. And I think my first year was significant for so many reasons, partly because I hated it. I'll be honest. I did not like it. I was like, what am I doing here? Cardiff is the countryside to me. Like, it just seems so different. And like, I didn't really like it. I didn't really feel like I belonged to be there. And that just kind of ruined the whole of my first year. Since then, everything has gone uphill. I really like it now. But I think it was just feeling like I'm alone, or nobody comes from a similar background to me. And I'm so lucky. Again, I met amazing friends who seems to be the recurring theme in my life. A great group of friends can really just support you. But this kind of feeling in my first year led to me starting Melanin Medics, actually, because at the end of my first year, well, at the beginning of first year, I started Melanin Medics, but I didn't release it to anybody. So it was literally just there for my view and pleasure. And I didn't have the courage to release it. But the main reason that I started it was because, like Ellen said, there was 15 Black people in her year. So when it was me, it was like just under 10 Black people in my year. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, you look around the lecture theatre, so many students, but there just wasn't many Black students. And I really wanted to see what could be done to change that. And that's why I started Melanin Medics. It was literally just to increase the representation of Black students in medical school. But of course, as time goes on, you start to realize that actually it's not just a numbers problem, that there are so many other underlying issues. And I put the question mark here because I don't know if I call myself an activist. I'd say more of an advocate. Yeah, I'm passionate about what I do and things. But yeah, you start to realize that there are a number of challenges that aren't being addressed or haven't been addressed or have just been dismissed, and people are like, well, that's the way it is. And no, it doesn't have to be like that, or it shouldn't be like that. So I think it's so yes, this is about Melanin Medics. So it's a charity now. When I started, Melanin Medics was just a blog. That was in 2017. But we've evolved to a charitable organization, and we're able to do so many kind of amazing things that were literally beyond my wildest dreams. And I think the best thing is creating a space that's safe for students like myself. It's always nice because I'm still a student, so I understand kind of the struggles that are going on. Of course, like as you get through medical school, you feel a bit more detached as you're nearing becoming a doctor, but I really get to see the benefit. And I remember one of Ellen's friends, actually, sorry, I'm going to keep bringing up Ellen because we go to the same medical school, but I remember when they started, when her year group started, and I saw her name, and she was one of the people that we had like reviewed her personal statement. And it was just so nice to see it go full circle in terms of actually witnessing students that you've helped get into medical school successfully and, you know, continue to thrive and meet friends and all of this amazing stuff. So really, really passionate about Melanin Medics, really passionate about what we do, and glad that we're able to continually do it. Moving on. So the main thing I'd say is that it's really important to understand what race inequality in medicine looks like, because I'd say I'm really passionate about achieving race equality, but without equity, you can't reach equality. And equality is essentially treating everybody the same. But actually, treating everybody the same doesn't result in the same opportunities for everybody, which is the ultimate kind of aim of equality. Equity is leveling the playing field. So it's understanding that actually, if people are viewed in a particular way where they're more disadvantaged in comparison to another, I didn't bring my pictures. Ellen showed a great picture of one of the diagrams that I use, but there's a particular picture that shows a race, and it's a white man and a black lady running the same length of the race, but the number of challenges for the black women are so much more than the white man. And he's saying, okay, well, it's the same distance, but it's not really the same race if you're more likely to face more challenges than the next person. So I think it's really important to just explore what inequality looks like, even historically, and that's why decolonizing the curriculum is so important, because medical racism is an issue that has just been swept under the rug and dismissed, like say it didn't happen. There's a particular, I don't know which one I should use. Maybe you might be familiar with Henrietta Lacks. So there's an amazing book. I think it's The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And she was a black lady in America. She had a certain type of cancer, and her cell type was really, really rare. I think probably she's one of the only people in the world that had that cell type. And what happened is that the doctors that were treating her extracted her cells without her consent, and started using it in medical research. And her cells are still being used now. And there have been great medical advancements that have been made, including the polio vaccine, which has led to the eradication of polio altogether. But actually, she was not informed. So there was no fully informed consent. She did not receive any compensation. Her family didn't receive any compensation. And they weren't, and the scientists themselves weren't even planning to inform the family of Henrietta Lacks. And so she was just kind of pushed to the side, and all these medical advancements are being made on the back of her mistreatment. So things like that are really important. Of course, there's a lack of representation of Black people in healthcare leadership. We don't really see many role models. And I think that's why it's so important to do school outreach, or to be part of talks like these, where it's like, I see somebody who looks like me, or I see somebody who's been through a similar thing as me. And I know it's not just myself, but seeing how they've been able to make it, that is really inspiring to individuals. So yes, this is a brief overview. I can't go into too much detail, in terms of what inequality looks like in medicine, race inequality to be specific. But these are the things that we try and address as well as an organization. Okay, so Olamide the doctor, that's coming sooner than pre-anticipated. This is beyond placement. I don't look this nice all the time, I'm sorry guys. But oopsie, gone too quick, sorry. My future plans, literally very simple, to be a good doctor. I like medicine, I do, it's my safe place. And it's weird, like for me, I could be doing medicine and consider it a relaxing activity. So whether it's like studying medicine, like Ellen says, sometimes I forget I'm a medical student. So when I'm able to actually do medical school stuff, it's really nice and it's really comforting. I'm really passionate about leadership, healthcare leadership specifically. So that's something that I'm going to continue to pursue. Definitely want to continue to lead Melanin Medics and support both current and future Black doctors. And hopefully we'll have an international reach one day, just redefining what it means to be a Black doctor or a Black medical student. You know, I don't want, when you think of a Black medical student or Black doctor, the first thing you think of to be racism. I would hate that to be the case. And I think, unfortunately, that is the case right now. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, kind of changing and redefining. I love helping young people. I love doing things like this, just because I know that even when I started Melanin Medics, I was young. I don't know what you call young, but I think just pushing people who are passionate, who have great ideas, and just supporting them in leadership, that's something that I want to do, as well as helping to tackle ethnic inequalities in health. We saw Ellen created the COVID kind of risk for Black patients. And I think that's a really, really just disappointing kind of factor that's been raised this year, but it's also been very enlightening. It's forced people to think, why is this the case, and actually work backwards. Another kind of really bad statistic when it comes to health inequalities is that Black women are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth than white women. And again, why is that the case? Especially because of the standardized care that the NHS provides. So it's really just been able to break down some of the things that have been found and really exploring the causes. And a nice quote here: the past is your lesson, the present is your gift, and the future is your motivation. And I'm almost done. So if I had to look back and speak to my younger self, it would be a very interesting conversation. I'm very different now, and it's really nice to be able to see that. But imagine a 17-year-old girl who's super shy, thinking about applying to medical school and not thinking she's going to be successful. That's who I was when I was younger. And I just say things like, recognize that you have the capability. You know, you've proved yourself academically, or you've proved yourself just as an individual, and that's enough to carry you through. What you have is enough. Pursue your passions. Honest, that is what will keep you sane. If I didn't have other things going on outside of medical school, I think it would be quite a struggle for me. Be confident. That's something that we have to work on continuously, as well as just utilizing those around you. So In2MedSchool are a great source, a great resource to get support from, and they provide amazing advice. So use it. Identify your strengths and not so good behaviors. And this is probably the most important one on this slide, just because it's talking about, sometimes I can get in my head and make things out to be bigger than they actually are, and they're not. So like, I was ready to give up when my chemistry teacher didn't give me the right grades, but my dad pushed me, and thank God he did. And yes, so I'm going to move on quickly because I've taken too much time. This is what I do to look after my mental health. This has been really important to me this year, just because I've been challenged in a lot more ways than I had pre-anticipated. So things like skipping, it's quite therapeutic. I recommend it. Music, I love music so much. Journaling, that is really good. It's really interesting. As well as my friends, so speaking to my friends and my family. Reading a lot more, and my faith is just the keeps me together. That's what I'd say. And I've been able to achieve some amazing things. So in this picture here, That's me and a few of my friends with the president of the Canadian Medical Association and the then president of the American Medical Association. This is me at Downing Street, which is also cool. This is me at the House of Parliament, which is also cool. This is me and my friends. This is what I really like, everybody. You see the all put together Olamide, but I honestly love my friends to bit. They're all medical students. And this is just me doing melanin medics work and also being part of societies too. Your story is what you have, it's what you'll always have, and it is something to own. So don't think that you're too small to do something. Don't think that, you know, this is too difficult, or nobody kind of doing what you want to do looks like you. Like, there's actually space for you. Anyway, that is everything. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry if I went over time. I really feel like I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olamide. That was very, very heartwarming, I'd say. So thank you for taking the time, everybody, just to present to these young students and inspire them as much as you've inspired us. Next up is Oke. Oke is a third-year medical student at Anglia Ruskin University, together with me, and she'll tell us all about herself.
Okay, hi.
Hello.
So yeah, so my name is Oke, and I'm really grateful to be here. I'm being invited on the panel talk, so I'm going to tell you, just give a quick whistle stop about what my journey into medicine was like, and where we're currently at. So as Anna said, I go to ARU with her, and we are currently in third year at the moment. Oh, next slide. Okay, so in sixth form, so I'm sure many of you are sixth formers at this time. I applied, so I chose your standard biology, chemistry, and maths, and I really wanted to do photography, but at my sixth form, they said in order to do photography, you have to do an art GCSE, which I didn't have. So I chose economics, nothing wrong with that, but I ended up choosing that. So for me, I think, I'm not sure if they do that with current sixth forms now, but we, when you were filling out your application, you had to put down like, what did you want to study in uni if you wanted to go into university? And I wanted to always do medicine. So I was put in a tutorial group where majority of us either wanted to do medicine or dentistry. So, and then during that time, when I first started sixth form, it was made very clear to me by the other students in our sixth form, in my particular tutorial group, that although I did really good at my GCSEs, my GCSEs in comparison to everyone else wasn't as high as everyone else. And I think for me that because of how the type of people that were in my sixth form and in my tutorial group almost planted like a seed of doubt in my capabilities, even though academically I'm actually quite bright, if I say so myself. But I think for me that started almost like sprouting this seed of this like plant of doubt in my capabilities and what I could do. And then, so when you apply in your A2, and I found that even like Olamide, what my biology teacher was not trying to predict me the grades that you needed for medicine, which minimum is usually 3 A's. And back in my time, I'm saying as if I was quite old, we had January exams and June exams, and so my biology teacher predicted me a B, but I said no, I'm going to get an A. And then when we sat the January exams, I got full marks in my exam. So basically showing, because I'm someone who, if I say I'm going to do something, I will put in that work and I will reap the result, and I did, and then that kind of shocked like all my teachers. So when it came to now applying for medicine, so we all applied, and of the, I think there were 16 of us that applied, only 3 of us got interviews, including myself. I got 3 interviews. However, still with the fact that, I think coupled with the fact that teachers, the students, in comparison to everyone else, my grades weren't as high as everyone else, but also I think the fact that my teachers and the people that were supposed to be supporting me were kind of almost shocked that I'd actually reached interview stage. Like someone actually, like medical schools actually wanted to interview me. And I think because of that, I never had confidence in my ability to actually, that I could think that I would actually be able to get into medicine. So much so, because no one in my family studies medicine or is a doctor. No one in my immediate family, extended family, probably like far, like those estranged uncles and aunties that you have that are doctors. So it's just me, my mum, my parents, and my sisters, and my cousins trying to help me because the school didn't want to help me. So much so that my mum had to come down and said to my personal tutor and said, you guys put them in specific tutorial groups that you're supposed to help them. So if you're not helping them, so essentially what are you guys doing? So quite a long story short, I went to the interviews and because I didn't believe in myself that I wasn't capable of getting into medical school, that showed in my interviews, and unfortunately I didn't get any offers. But what I wish someone would have told me, and what I'd like to tell everyone that's attending, is that when you are given or invited for interview, essentially you are almost there. What I wish someone would have told me is that, and what I tell to students that I see at like interview stage, is that when you write your personal statement and they invite you for interview, it means that the admissions tutors actually like what they see on paper. Paper-wise, they think you would make an excellent doctor, that's why they're inviting you. When you get to your interview stage, you just need to show that you are the person that they like on paper. You essentially just need to bring to life what you sold to them and what you showed to them on your personal statement. So which is something I wish someone would have told me. Anyway, moving on. I then, because I didn't get in, I went to University of Leicester where I studied biochemistry for 3 years. Really enjoyed it, met amazing friends, of which I still talk to today. But I decided I can't work in a lab. Personally, I'm someone who gets quite bored. And being in the lab all day, there's only so much one can do. So I said, okay, I'm going in my final year. Once I finished, so I graduated, and I said, okay, that October, I'm going to study. I'm going to apply for medicine again. But this time, I said, I've learned from my previous mistakes. What am I going to do different? So I'm always on Twitter, and I happened to just pop up, and when I saw African Caribbean medical mentors, and I saw Melanin Medics, and I saw Black Medical Society. So at the time, I think this was in the beginning stages, African Caribbean medical mentors, they were pairing up prospective medical students and dentist students, if you were applying, and they would basically pair you up with someone who's either a current medical or dental student or a current doctor or dentist, and essentially they will be with you and help guide you on your process, on your application to medicine or dentistry. In terms of Melanin Medics, I sent them over my personal statement for them to review, and they still review personal statements, so check them out for next year. And in terms of Black Medical Society, I went to them and because they were offering interview prep for medical student, like prospective medical students, again, interview experience that I didn't have back when I was applying. So yeah, so that was a journey. And then I got 2 offers. So I'm currently studying medicine now. So another thing that I'd want to stress is that I think the hardest thing about medical school, or something that I noticed, is that in terms of your whole application, the hardest thing is actually getting in, because once you're in, it's almost like you can breathe, because essentially those of you who aren't in at the moment but you're applying, you'll say, oh, medical school is hard. Maybe it's because I've done a degree, or others that are currently studying medicine now. It's not hard. What is hard is the sheer volume of stuff that you have to go through, sheer volume of knowledge that you need to go through, and the amount of content. That is what is hard. And I think it's all about your organization, time management. That's essentially what will get you through. But content-wise, I don't think it's that hard. But I would like to also stress that being in medical school as a Black student, it was made very clear to me that I am not just a medical student, but I am a Black medical student through my experiences on placement, but also at my actual medical school as well. I had had some experiences, but also I think highlighting, when you look at the amount of Black medical students in my year group and in the year groups below, there isn't that many of us. And I think it's hard, especially coming to, especially with the course that you're going to be spending 5 years and not having as many people around, that many people that you can relate to. I think that's quite hard. So I think finding people that, you know, have similar interests to you that you can do outside of medicine and things like that is quite important. So yeah, in terms of what I've done, because for me, I think the importance of, you know, trying to increase the awareness and just making things, improving things for me, what I've done is I've taken part, so I'm currently the BMA rep for our medical school. So I'm the link between the BMA, the British Medical Association, and our medical school. With everything happening in the summer, as I'm sure you're aware, with like the Black Lives Matter movement, I petitioned at my medical school, one, to sign our the racial harassment charter that was published by the BMA earlier on this year. I also petitioned, and I'm still currently working with the medical faculty to basically create change and decolonize our curriculum and basically make it representative of the future, like the patients that we are going to treat, which is why I'm working in collaboration with Skin Deep. So I'm the student, the national student rep for this organization called Skin Deep, in which they're trying to create almost like a source of different images for clinical signs that will show in a variety of patients of different skin tones or of different ethnic backgrounds. Because what I found is that when you're taught in medical school, albeit the future patients that you're going to see when you're out on placement, when you're out in clinics, you'll be treating patients of different backgrounds, different ethnicities to you. But what we're taught in medical school, we're given the standard white patients, that's it, that's all we're taught, but that's not reflective of the patients that we are going to see. And it would not only is that dangerous, because if you're not able to recognize certain signs, it's also, essentially it's dangerous for the future patients that will be put at risk simply because you don't know what, let's say what chickenpox, basic things such as chickenpox, when someone is like anemic looks like. I'm also currently the liberation officer for the medical society at my med school, and last week we held a panel discussion with current Black doctors and talking about their experience of what it's like to be in the NHS, and that was quite a good turnout. And I also put there the African Caribbean medical mentors again, because something that my mentor, who I'm still talking to today, and she still currently mentors me today, told me is that once you get into medical school, it's important that you also bring other people in as well. So I myself now currently mentor have a mentee who I'm currently helping in her journey to get into medical school. I've also helped out in a number of events. Recently, they held a conference for getting into medical school. So tips and tricks, for example, I helped out with personal statements, talking about like what to include, things that that is not made well known, it's not well publicized, and I think it's important, especially because no one really tells you that knowledge unless you have people around you that are telling you about it, and that's something like that, and that's something again which I think is important. So that's currently where I'm at in terms of my medical school career. But what I'd like to end on finally, I think I might be running over, but I just want to say is that, what did I want to say? Oh, when I introduced the talk, I don't know whether or not maybe if anyone noticed that I didn't introduce myself as like, hi, my name is Oke, I'm a medical student, as if I was like an OSCE, simply because I don't make medicine my whole life. The same way in which when you're applying for medicine, they ask for extracurricular activities. What do you do outside of medicine? Because for me, I'm fortunate and I understand that being in this career, being in this profession, you are given the opportunity to essentially practice almost anywhere in the world. Albeit you still have to do a few exams to practice in these other countries, but wherever you go in the world, you always need a doctor. But what I've always said that there's life outside of medicine. So for me, as well as mentoring, I also like to, I do hair on the side. I have a bonnet and accessories business with my friends. So we do create bonnets, and we also create like mini bags. And what else do I do? Oh, I've also started an arts and craft business. But yeah, that's essentially me in a nutshell. But
I think apart from that, Oke does some amazing anatomy drawings that when I see, I'm just like, how do you actually do them? And they're like so anatomically accurate, but at the same time, they're like very, very artistic with like watercolors, I think they're called in English. They're just wonderful. So I think you should check them out. But thank you, everybody, for sharing a little bit of you with us and with our attendees today, which are all showing how really enthusiastic about the whole process they are. Thanks to the representation they received today from you. There are so many amazing questions. Hopefully we can go through some of them just because we are running out of time, but I like this discussion too much to end the panel. So if anyone has to go, please feel free to do so. We are recording the webinar anyway. Yeah. But I think first question, which I think is so important, how do you feel about the sudden media coverage on Black Lives Matter? Because many people believe it started in 2020 with the sudden death of George Floyd, but actually it was created much earlier on. So how do you actually feel about this? Anyone can answer, guys.
I don't know. I was in two minds because I think even for me as an individual, I felt very detached to the Black Lives Matter movement prior to the death of George Floyd. And I think that's why it was quite a difficult time to actually process how I really felt. I think particularly in terms of what I'm exposed to, I'm used to talking about racism like all the time. It doesn't mean I like talking about it all the time, but it's just my reality. But I think with the sudden coverage of the Black Lives Matter movement, I think it's a window of opportunity. That's what it created, even for myself as a Black individual, just because it made you kind of reflect on, okay, racial injustice isn't just in America, like it's actually in the UK. It's very much here and alive and prevalent, and I think it was a great window of opportunity to let other people know the extent of how much it exists. I think with the British people, we're very much we don't talk too much. It's like, it's not that bad here, but it shouldn't be here at all. I don't care what level it is on levels of 0 to 100. Like it's still something that shouldn't really exist. So I think as much as people are like, oh, like it's existed for a long time. I think 2020 just presented a great window of opportunity. There were so many kind of factors that played into the magnification of the Black Lives Matter movement. We're talking COVID-19 and the impact on BAME communities, and Black people being 4 times more likely. People started looking at health inequalities, even just in terms of COVID and the stillness and people being on lockdown and forced to actually stay at home and be exposed to this. I think as individuals, we're used to seeing this. So it was a few weeks prior that it was Olamide Dada, I think, and that passed away. And you're just so used to hearing these names, like the different names over the years. But I think coupling everything, like the circumstances, the environment, I think it made it a perfect window of opportunity for other people to be exposed. So I think as much as the Black Lives Matter movement is based on a sad thing, it's providing great windows of opportunity for meaningful change to happen.
Thank you so much. I think, yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think it can take quite a toll personally on the health, on the mental health of Black students particularly. I think many people didn't really know what to do at that point, because I personally wanted to check in on my Black friends, but I also didn't want to to put too much pressure on this, because I didn't want to, I didn't want them to feel like I was doing it because of a particular reason. And at the same time, I think Ellen, you said this. It's important for non-Black people to ask about Black people's experience in a respectful manner, etc. But it's also important for us to step up and educate ourselves, because we all have access to the internet and we all have access to so many resources. I think the burden shouldn't be on Black people to educate white people, and the burden shouldn't be on Black people to change a system that they didn't create themselves. So thank you so much for everything you do, but at the same time, don't feel like you have to do more than this, because your mental health comes first. I think another important question that has been asked, we're kind of gonna couple like 2 questions into one. They ask, what things can medical students and medical schools do to improve the culture at Cardiff, Anglia Ruskin and other medical schools? As well as what can medical students do in medical schools, particularly if they don't have societies like ACMA or projects like Skin Deep. Would anyone?
I'm happy to answer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to find that question again. Is it about Cardiff? Okay, what other things can...
Yeah, so what other things can Cardiff, Anglia Ruskin do, and what can university students do, particularly if they don't have societies like ACMA in their schools?
Yeah, so I think other things medical school can do is it's all to do with building trust with students, because we can try and push for all this change, but if we don't trust who we're dealing with, we're not really going to make much difference, really. So it's trying, I think honesty and transparency is a really big step to improve the culture, because people will then open up and see the changes that are going to happen and be more receptive to those. Some things they are doing is, trying to increase the number of just more conversations, whether that's in learning or outside of medical school, having more thinking points. For Black students specifically, I think it's really hard because there isn't that many of us, but I think working with societies such as ACMA, and also I know Charmaine's part of a really great society called CHIPS as well, actually working with students, not putting the work on us, but actually reaching out for advice, because ultimately you're not going to know what changes we need if you don't ask us what we want. So actually working with societies is a great way. And I think with the other question about if they don't have societies, I'd encourage you to make one if you can. But I think even if you don't have an official, name, it's just even if it's a group of you together, just reach out, contact medical school, because they need help. They are incredibly busy, and they will answer if you want to make the change. So I think it's putting yourself out there for that question. Yeah, that's just some of my thoughts.
Thank you
Just
so
to
much.
add to what Ellen said quickly, even if you don't want to make the society like yourself, a group chat works wonders. Just to be able to share resources, just to be able to share experiences, and then someone within the group chat will probably have the energy to make a society. So it doesn't have to be the individual.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys on what you said, like trust and just initiating the chat, because everything will depend on what they want as well, because obviously all the work that you're going to put into is going to have an impact on those who are receiving it, and you want to make sure that what you're giving is what's the best that you think people would want to use as well. So definitely agree on the points that you guys mentioned out. So another question that I think is quite important that we should address. Someone asked, what do you think about the stereotypes that Black women face in terms of being aggressive? Oh, sorry, the question disappeared. In terms of being aggressive, or their natural hair being considered unprofessional. Like, have you experienced this, and what can be done to change these stereotypes? It's quite a long question.
You know, had my natural hair out this week. I think it's been an experience for me. I think, you know what, these stereotypes exist, but the fact that you know it's a stereotype, that means you need to be mindful of that stereotype. I don't know if that makes sense. So I think with stereotypes or with unconscious bias, I don't think it's unconscious. I think you just need the right environment for it to really kind of manifest itself. And that's when you realize that it's influencing your decisions and things. But when it comes to, you know, an individual's hair or the way they behave, if they haven't behaved like that towards you, then you have no grounds to make that prejudgment. And I think you also have to be very careful, because what you see is a lot of Black students kind of diminish their personality, or they're not their full authentic selves because of these stereotypes. And I think as individuals, whether you're Black or not Black, we all have a responsibility to make the environment one where everybody can feel like they can be their authentic selves. They can feel like they can come into medical school without having to worry about someone saying that they're being aggressive when they're just calling something out. Like, I can speak in a very monotone voice and someone would still say I'm being aggressive. And it can be frustrating, but I think as individuals, if you know that's already a stereotype that exists, you cannot play into that stereotype. You have to decide in your behavior that this isn't something that I'm going to continue to propagate or project into the world. And in terms of natural hair being unprofessional, to each that own. Sorry, I'm gonna come with my natural hair, and it's taken me a long time. I think this is the second speaking engagement that I've done in my natural hair, and I've had quite a few speaking engagements over the years. So I think what you don't realize is that these stereotypes actually have an impact on individuals themselves, and it's something that I, as a young lady, as somebody who's progressing in my career, it's something that I have to be mindful of, and I have to challenge these stereotypes as an individual. But yeah, I think it's just being able to have that conversation at higher levels to say what's unprofessional about this, and just challenging the status quo, really. But I do have to go, that's why I was talking a lot. It's been so great. It's been amazing to be part of it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me. I think Charmaine has my email address as well, so feel free to reach out to her. But it was great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we recognize it's getting late, so thank you so much for all the questions you guys have sent out. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to answer all of them. But please feel free to DM us on Instagram and we will get you an answer. I think the last very important question that we will cover is the following. Do you think there is enough support for students that experience racism? How would you report it, and what would be done about it?
I think that's very much dependable on the university which you're at, because it's very much, like I said, all experiences are very different. So at Cardiff, they've improved the raising concerns policies now, so it's a lot more easy about where to go, who do you go to, who to contact, sort of thing. I think let's get the full, that's a great question. Let's get the full one up again. Is it how do you, where's it gone?
He said, what would be done about this? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just when there is like racism that occurs, it is an individual choice if you choose to report. But I think also I don't know, anonymity is actually sometimes important sometimes, because it can be scary and you do want to protect yourself. Sometimes you don't want to speak up, but actually it's okay to protect yourself when you're reporting racist experiences. If you're not aware of the policies, I know it might be a mixture of medics and aspiring medics, but ask about them. They should be really obvious. You should know where to get them. Don't be afraid to ask questions because it's their job, sort of thing. Yeah.
I'd say at my medical school, so in terms of like raising concerns, it's not quite clear, if I'm honest, it's not quite clear at my medical school. I'm currently trying to, and that's what I've been trying to work with the faculty to try and make something very clear, because if you have, my thing is, if you haven't got anywhere to report it, and because if it's not made clear, essentially that will be allowed to continue on, because who do you report it to if that thing is still, if there's no one to report, if you can't report it to anyone, then there's nothing essentially that you can do, because you just feel the need that I'm going to just take it on because there's no one else to help. So in terms of my med school, I'm trying to get or have some form of platform in which our med school can have, like, or if there's like someone that the med school can have in order for medical students, if they feel in certain situations that may present themselves, someone that they can talk to, if that helps.
Thank you so much. I do agree with, okay, there's so much work to be done in so many institutions, but also the institutions that have tackled this already, there's always more than one can do to achieve equality, not only for minority ethnic groups, but for any social group that gets discriminated against in the field of medicine and in broader society. So these are conversations that have to keep on happening as frequently as we can, because that's the only way that we will actually try to make a change in society. But again, thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much everyone for coming out. We have posted a Google form. It would be very good to give these amazing speakers some feedback, and it would also be so nice for us to know what events you'd like to see coming up. We will organize some virtual work experience, because we know that it's been particularly challenging during COVID times to get work experience as well as interview prep, etc. So yes, sign up to be a mentee of In2MedSchool if you haven't done that already. And yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Charmaine, for co-hosting this with me, and thank you to our amazing speakers.
Just a notice as well, we will send out the certificates in the next few days, and I think what we'll do is that, are the speakers happy if we put your contact emails when we send out the certificates? And Alan, I'll put your uni buddy link as well in there.
Yeah, I'll send that link to you. That's no worries.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Thank you so much, everyone. Once again, have a great Saturday and happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.